There is a kind of tiredness that is not about sleep, it is about direction. The day moves, and you move with it, not because you chose to, but because it was already moving. You are present in your own life. You just are not sure you are directing it. Most people will never speak that sentence aloud, but many of them feel it quietly in the space between what they meant to do and what they actually did. This is not a story about waking up early. That is not the point. This is a story about what a person becomes when they stop waiting for the right mood to begin and simply begin. He was not failing. That was the strange part. Nothing had collapsed, nothing had been ruined. The wheat was still in the field. The fire still burned through the evening. His hands still knew what they were made to do. And yet, he would stand at the window in the last hours of light and feel a particular kind of stillness that did not belong to peace. It belonged to waiting, waiting for a morning that would feel different, waiting for a season that would bring the right energy, waiting for clarity to arrive without being invited. He believed, without saying it, that tomorrow would be different without him being different. That change arrived through mood, that the right moment would reveal itself given enough patience. That motivation was something that happened to a person and not something a person made. It was a quiet belief, almost invisible, the kind of law you live inside of without ever agreeing to it. In the corner of the room, a simple wooden staff leaned against the wall. It had been there for months. He had not decided to put it there, but he had simply not moved it. He went to sleep. The candle burned low. The tools stayed where they were. Outside, the field waited in silence. It did not need him to choose, but it was ready for when he did. He woke before dawn. There was no vision, no voice, no sudden feeling of readiness. He was cold. The floor was cold. His mind was quiet in the way that minds are quiet before they have been asked to do anything, not peaceful, just empty. He sat on the edge of the bed for a moment. That moment was the whole conversation. On one side, the warmth still in the wool, the permission to stay, the logic of the body that said there was no reason to move. On the other side, nothing dramatic, only a small, quiet decision that had no audience. He stood. That was the entire crossing, one movement. A vote cast inside his own chest that no one else could see or count. He moved to the narrow window. The sky was not yet light. The field was a dark shape beyond the glass, like his breath made a faint cloud in the cold air. He did not know what he was doing, not yet. He only knew that he had stood when the choice was available. In the corner, he noticed the wooden staff. He picked it up this time, not because he needed it, not because it meant anything. He simply picked it up, held it uncertainly, set it down near the door. The day had not yet begun, but it was already different from the one before. He did it again the next morning, and the one after that. There was no applause. There were no visible signs that anything had changed. The field looked the same. The tools were still waiting. The candle still burned low by evening. But something was happening that had no shape yet. Thoughts, which had previously arrived in whatever order they chose, began to arrive in a slightly different sequence, not organized, not yet, but less tangled, as if the morning quiet had made a kind of space that the rest of the day could move through more cleanly. He could not have explained it to anyone. He could barely feel it himself. But there was a particular quality to the fifth morning that the first morning had not had. A small reduction in resistance, the edge of the decision and the moment of standing was very slightly less sharp, not easy, not comfortable, just less opposed. This is the part that is never shown, the part before results, the part after decision but before evidence, the part where a person simply keeps going with nothing to show for it yet. Most people leave during this part not because they have given up, because the silence feels like absence, like the pattern is not working, like the field does not remember you were there. But the field does remember, structure chosen in silence becomes strength seen in daylight. The wooden staff had moved from the corner to the door. He had not noticed doing it. It had simply migrated morning by morning closer to where he was walking. He picked it up on the seventh morning without thinking, carried it outside, walked the edge of the field as the sky turned from dark to the first pale gray. Nothing changed. Everything was being changed. Comfort has a voice. It does not speak loudly. It does not need to. It simply presents reasons. You are tired genuinely. The work has been heavy. One morning without the ritual changes nothing. You have done it many times already. You have earned rest. The field will still be there when the light is better. Every argument was correct. That was the difficulty. Comfort does not lie to you. It gives you real reasons, the kind that a wise person could agree with, and he almost agreed. He lay in the dark with the wool pulled up and the arguments lined up neatly beside him, and he thought, perhaps this morning I simply rest. Perhaps that is also a form of wisdom. Perhaps the pattern can hold even with a gap in it. Perhaps he did not sleep easily, not because he had chosen wrong, but because the debate itself had weight, because he could feel somewhere beneath the tiredness that the choice he made in the next few moments would tell him something about himself that he was not entirely sure he wanted to know yet. He stood, not triumphantly, not with certainty, with exactly enough, which was the only amount ever available. The structure held, barely. But holding by barely is still holding. He found the wooden staff near the door where he had left it. His hands were cold. The field was still dark. He walked. Somewhere in the third week, the debate stopped, not because the arguments disappeared, but because he stopped hearing them as arguments. They became background, the ordinary noise of mornings, and he moved through them the way a person moves through a familiar door, without reading the door, without deciding whether to open it, simply through. This was the shift that had no ceremony. He had expected, somewhere in the first days, that the reward would arrive as feeling, as energy, as a particular brightness in the chest that said, "You are doing it right." It did not arrive as feeling, it arrived as absence. The absence of the negotiation, the absence of the question, will I or won't I? The question had simply been answered, and the answering was now part of who he was, so the question no longer needed to be asked. That was the gift, not fire, not brightness. The quiet of a thing decided. He did not wake up powerful, he woke up steady. Steadiness is quieter than power. It does not announce itself. It does not need to. It simply keeps doing what it does, regardless of who is watching or whether the field acknowledges it that morning. On one particular morning, he could not have said which one, like only that it was cold and the sky was the color of slate. He picked up the wooden staff without looking for it. His hand knew where it was. He carried it upright, not leaning on it, not using it for support, simply carrying it as a settled thing is carried. He did not know yet that anyone had noticed. He was not walking for them. He did not announce what he had been doing. There was nothing to announce. No one had watched. No one had been keeping the count. But something had changed in the way people turned toward him. Not dramatically, not with speeches or given honors. It was subtler than that and more real. It was the way a man at the market looked at him when he quoted a price, with less negotiation than before, as if the number sounded more certain coming from him now. Or it was the way the village elder passed the responsibility to him at the end of a long gathering, not with explanation, simply with the steady look that said, "You are the one I trust with this." It was the way a younger man started walking beside him in the mornings when their paths crossed, not asking to learn anything, just choosing proximity, the way people choose proximity to something that seems to know where it is going. None of them knew about the mornings. They only knew the result of the mornings. The result was not loudness, it was not speed, it was not some obvious sharpening of performance that could be pointed to and measured. The result was simply this: when he was present, things felt more ordered. When he spoke, people listened, not because he was eloquent, but because he had clearly thought before speaking. When he committed to something, it appeared to be done. This is what reliability looks like from the outside, not extraordinary, not loud, just the quiet knowledge spreading slowly through a community that this person will be where they said they would be, doing what they said they would do, and they will have already thought about it before anyone else woke up. He walked home that evening with the wooden staff in his hand, upright, not because he was trying to look steady, but because he was. He no longer told himself to wake early. He no longer negotiated with the morning. He no longer needed to remember why the ritual mattered, or rehearse the arguments for it, or protect it against the comfortable logic of staying in. He simply woke and rose and walked, the way a river does not decide each morning to move toward the sea. It moves because that is what it is. Direction become nature. He did not think of himself as someone who had built a practice. He did not think of it at all. It was simply true of him, the way the length of his hands was true of him, the way his voice was low and certain. He was a man who chose the morning before the morning chose him, not because he was strong willed, not because he was unusually disciplined, but because he had made the same choice enough times that the choice had become character. And character does not require effort the way decisions do. It requires only continuation. The wooden staff was simply part of how he walked now. He had stopped noticing it. It was not a symbol. It was not a reminder. It was just the thing in his hand that had been there long enough to feel natural. This is the only difference between the man who wakes early and the man who does not talent, not will, not some superior arrangement of character, only the willingness to cross the same threshold quietly enough times that crossing it stops feeling like a crossing at all. And then one morning, some ordinary morning, nothing remarkable about the sky or the season or the particular weight of the silence, it is simply who you are. There is a version of your life that no one will hand you. It will not arrive through the right conditions or the right season or the moment you feel ready enough. It arrives only through repetition, through the choosing of structure before comfort again and again, until the structure is no longer chosen. It is simply lived. 5 a.m. is not the point. The hour is not the lesson. The lesson is the crossing, the private, unwitnessed crossing that only you know you made. The world will reflect it eventually. Others will sense it before they understand it. Trust will follow you into rooms before you speak. Responsibility will find you the way water finds the lowest reliable ground. But none of that is why you do it. You do it because the alternative, the life assembled by circumstance, moved by mood, directed by Whatever arrives first. Tung is life you never actually chose, and you are capable of more than that, not more noise, more alignment. Pick up the staff, cross the threshold. No one needs to watch.